If you're making multi 6 to 7 figures from your business, but you still feel like you can't relax, you've built a business that works, but you still feel like the bottleneck, and you thought as your revenue grew, so would your feeling of peace, this episode is for you. Peace is not going to come from your Stripe account. It is going to come from two things, which we'll talk about in this episode, which is on the topic of what hitting 100K months is not going to fix. I feel like a lot of people in entrepreneurship have this feeling that hitting certain milestones is automatically going to come with a feeling of success, happiness, peace, fulfillment, etc. And then we reach that next level and realize that it doesn't actually work that way. And a few weeks ago, I actually had an inquiry come in that I thought was a really great example of this. It was a well-established business. They have a very well-known brand, and I've seen the owner of the business speak at a lot of conferences. They get celebrated online and by a lot of people for being so successful in something that being the type of business that a lot of people aspire to have. But when I read their intake form questions, I realized that they seemed successful on the outside, but they were freaking out in private. So I won't go into all of the nitty-gritty details as to why, but the high-level overview is that they built a pretty large business with lots of locations, large team, and they ended up getting what they felt like was bad guidance that led to them making poor decisions that ended up costing them a lot of time and a lot of money, and then ended up having to downsize their business due to financial constraints, and we're in a place of needing to basically rebuild. And when I tell you the level of nervous system dysregulation that I saw was very high, and understandably so, because it can feel like you're carrying a lot when you have a high amount of income coming in the door, but then you at the same time have a high amount going right back out again. So there are two things I think that 100K months won't fix. Really, any amount of money coming in the door is not going to fix. Number one is your mindset. I talked about this a few weeks ago back in episode 176. You can go dive into that for more on the mindset and the internal work that needs to happen if you want to feel more peace. But the other thing that 100K months or any level of revenue is not going to fix is your margins. So if there's one thing I want you to take from this episode, and I'm speaking specifically to the high earning business owners or people who aspire to be a high earning business owner, is that you don't automatically need more revenue. You need more margin. You need more financial margin in order to feel the success that you've created. You need more time margin so that you have more freedom and space in your days. And you need energetic margin so that your nervous system can exhale. So let's start with financial margin. Financial margin, also known as profit margin, is what do you have left after you pay all the bills? So you might have a lot of revenue coming in, but how much is left after your team costs, after software and office and rent and any of the other expenses you have, taxes? How much are you left with? You've probably heard me say that I really like for my clients to target at least 30 to 50% profit margins, depending on the industry and business structure that they have. Because I find that when we operate on low margins, your level of stress is going to skyrocket. So actually, one of my first ever CFO clients was an 8-figure service-based business, 8 figures, so over 10 million in revenue, with a 3% profit margin. So 3% on $10 million in revenue. There are businesses that we work with today that have more profit in terms of dollars on a tenth of the revenue that this business was bringing in. Their payroll was well into the 6 figures every month. Every week, I remember the business owner was asking me, where are we at? How am I doing? Do I have enough cash to pay the bills this week? Like this constant stress of operating on this razor thin edge, knowing that if something went off the rails, the business owner was going to go into debt. They were going to have to let their team go. They were going to have to potentially shut parts of their business down. And this is obviously not where we want to be, but I find that a lot of people feel this way, even if their margins are maybe not as low as that. But when we have clients who are only netting, let's say 10 to 20% of revenue, they don't feel like the effort that they're putting into their business, the time and energy that they're putting into it, is worth the payoff that they're getting from the business because their profit margins are low. So how do you know if you're operating with razor thin margins? Well, you probably would see it on your financial statements. Hopefully you have financial statements that you're getting and it shows you your profit margins, but you're probably going to be feeling like you're bleeding money. Your bank account is probably fluctuating up and down. You get sales getting deposited in, and then very quickly you're turning that back around and paying out payroll or rent or other expenses. You might need to be taking on loans to fund operating expenses, which, to be clear, I'm not anti-debt, but I don't love it when businesses have to take on debt just to fund operating expenses. Debt for investing purposes, great. With a good plan, debt to fund operating expenses is a sign of a business that is operating on razor thin margins. You're probably also making pretty reactionary business decisions. You feel like you're behind the 8 ball rather than being proactive and being able to look out into the future and say, this is what I need for my next 3 to 5 steps that I see coming for my business. So obviously, financial margin is really crucial to having a sustainable, profitable business. But time and energy margins, I would say, are almost as important, if not more important, because if you do not have time and energy capacity as the business owner, not only are you not going to be able to do the big picture things that you need to do in order to move your business forward, but it's really just not going to feel worth it. And these are the types of businesses where I see clients who come in and they're like, I just am ready to burn it all down if I cannot figure out a better way to run this business. You probably have a million things floating around in your head. You're getting emails and Slack messages all the time, probably staying up into the night thinking about what could potentially go wrong in your business. And I really don't want you to be carrying the weight of all of this on your nervous system, because as your revenue grows, the weight of it is just going to get heavier and heavier. And instead, what we want to really do is design a business that is not so heavy to carry. So in order to do that, we first need to understand, how did you get where you are right now? And then, of course, we'll talk about the fix. So I'd say the first thing, the most common thing that I see with business owners who are having a lack of margin, whether it's financial, time, or energetic margin, is that they don't have a solid long-term plan. They might have some sort of sense of where they want to go, but they've not sat down and actually mapped out, like, what does that look like for my business? How am I connecting my business goals back into my personal and life goals, and making sure that I've designed my business in a way that supports my life versus the other way around, letting my business dictate the way that you live your life? Because most clients that we work with, they start their business for financial and time freedom and having an impact on the world around them. But then you just kind of keep going, right? You start your business. Maybe it blew up pretty quickly. The revenue kept growing. You started hiring. And before you know it, you feel like you are out of control. You feel like you've gone off the path and you don't see a clear way to get back without feeling like you want to burn it all to the ground. You're probably also fairly reactionary with your financials. And so a lot of clients, even into the multi-7 figures, I have clients who will come in, or leads will come in and tell me, we have a bookkeeper, but we're 6 months behind in the financials. They're struggling to keep up with the level of complexity that we have. I don't have good visibility into what is going on unless I go in and dig through all the different sales and marketing systems that I have, but I don't have one cohesive, clear picture of how my business is doing, which means that you are going to be reactionary, because it's really hard to make proactive and strategic decisions if you are constantly looking backwards, right? And if you don't have good, timely data in the here and the now. Along those same lines, we probably don't have a solid sales plan in place and tracking of your lead generation pipeline, which means that it is going to be difficult for you to forecast out capacity and make sure that as the CEO of your business, am I going to have enough work for my team in the next 3 to 6 months, or am I potentially going to have a shortfall, and do I need to go out and do the CEO level activities to be the rainmaker for your business? This can also lead to overhiring, which I think is one of the biggest things that I see with multi-6 and 7-figure clients who have hired a lot of team without having a clear understanding of what their cash flow is going to look like and without having that plan in place. And so what ends up happening is you have this huge payroll, and then you end up not having the sales on an ongoing basis to support it. The fix for this, the fix for increasing the margin in your business in all forms, is really structure, which I know is hard sometimes for the entrepreneur types to hear that. And I say that as someone who is definitely a visionary entrepreneur type. But having a structure, I think, is really important because I think it frees up more brain space and more of your capacity, knowing that the foundational, the crucial stuff is covered so that you aren't spending brain space worrying about it. And then you can turn around and do the CEO visionary activities. Before I talk more about the fix, I have a client example of this. Was a client who came in late 2024 with us, multi 7-figure business. This client actually had an in-house full-time CFO, which, side note, you do not need an in-house full-time CFO until you're making multi 8 figures in most cases. So she had an in-house full-time CFO and was still not able to get the level of clarity in her business model and in her margins and why there was a lack of margins. And I remember her telling us when we were onboarding her that she had asked the questions of like, what's going on? Help me understand why it seems like we don't have money in the bank. And the answer that she got back was, well, you just need to pay yourself less, which kind of makes me chuckle because it tells me that they didn't have an understanding of how their business model is working. They didn't have an understanding of what the margins actually looked like in their business. And I don't mean this in a bad way. It happens to a lot of business owners, and it's really frustrating when you have someone that you hire who is supposed to help you answer those questions and they're not able to. And so the answer that they give you is just pay yourself less, which as a business owner who, again, you put all this time and energy into your business, you want to be able to pay yourself well. So to help our clients, I'll tell you what we do to help them increase their margins is number one, we come in, we assess what's happening now. We get a sense of what their margins looks like. We clean up their financials if we need to. We improve their reporting so that we know this is exactly how your business is doing right now. These are the ins, these are the outs. And then we do a benchmarking analysis. We'll dig in and get a sense of where are we losing money, where are we getting money, what's working, what's not. And then we create a plan to move forward. So we assess, then we talk to the business owner about what their goals are and what their vision is so that we can create a plan for them to go from where they are currently to where they're wanting to go. And then we implement. And so this is the same process you've heard me talk about with planning, right? So assess, plan, implement. And then we come back around again and say, okay, 3 months later, what changes did you implement? How did that work? What impact did that have? What are the next things that we're going to be testing out? And so we do that so we can fix your margin, so we can fix the structure of your business so that it is financially sound and you're generating profit margins and time and energetic margins for you as a CEO. And then from that place, then we talk about how do we grow revenue? Because more revenue is not going to fix your mindset or your margins. The question from this episode that I want you to think about is not the question of how do I make more? The question that I want you to answer is how do I earn more? How do I keep more of what I'm already earning? And how do I carry less? If you are earning 20 to 30K months up to 100K plus months in your business and you are not sure how you can increase your financial time or energetic margins, then you need to book a profit clarity assessment. This is an assessment that is not going to give you cookie cutter advice. It is built for high performing women business owners who want their business to create peace instead of pressure. What I'll ask from you is that you fill out some questions and provide your financials. Me and my team will review what you provide, and then in a one-on-one call, we will uncover where your money's leaking, what it's costing you, and how you can start to turn it around in the next 90 days. You can sign up for a profit clarity assessment at trustyoungco.com/PCA. And if you are working on getting to 20 to 30K months, so that you can get a profit clarity assessment, the High Profit Society is exactly where you need to be. It's for women who are making 5 to 10K months and want to scale their business up so that they can take home a 6-figure paycheck. You can check out the High Profit Society in the description underneath this video or podcast episode, or go to trustyoungco.com/society. All right, y'all. So that is it for this week. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're going to go away and think about how you can increase your margins in your business before you scale your revenue up to the next level. And I'll see you back next week.